Of course, Ollie grabbed the wrong laptop bag. Why wouldn't he? My 8-year-old son had the attention span of a goldfish on espresso, and this morning was no different. I was stirring my coffee, watching Elena rush around our kitchen like a tornado in heels, when my phone buzzed. Mr. Thompson? This is Principal Martinez from Riverside Elementary. We need you to come in immediately. There's been a situation with Oliver's backpack. The way she said situation made my stomach drop. Not the usual, he forgot his lunch money call. Something else entirely. What kind of situation? I asked, but Elena was already grabbing her keys, muttering about being late for another critical meeting with her team at Pinnacle Financial. She'd been having a lot of those lately. It's better if we discuss this in person, Mr. Thompson. How quickly can you get here? 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Principal Martinez's office, staring at Elena's work laptop, the one she'd left charging on the kitchen counter last night. The same counter where Ollie had dumped his school bag before racing upstairs to brush his teeth. One of our teachers was setting up for computer class when she opened what she thought was Oliver's school laptop, Principal Martinez explained, her face grave. Instead, she found, well, perhaps you should see for yourself. Detective Gorman, a tired-looking man in his 50s, turned the screen toward me. What I saw made my blood run cold. Email threads with subject lines like Project Closeout, Final Phase, and Asset Transfer Timeline. Financial documents showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. Photos of warehouse locations I didn't recognize. Video files with timestamps from Elena's supposed business trips. But the worst part, a message thread between Elena and someone named Grant Morrison. The most recent exchange, dated just 3 days ago. Elena, Jack's getting suspicious. We might need to accelerate the timeline. Grant. Don't worry, babe. If he becomes a problem, we stick to the plan. Domestic violence allegations are hard to disprove, especially with the right documentation. Elena. I hate doing this to him, but he'll never understand. Once we're in the Caymans, none of this will matter. Grant. You said it yourself. He's just a construction foreman. He'll never figure out what really happened to the Henderson Project funds. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. The Henderson Project, the luxury condo development where I'd been the site supervisor for the past 2 years. The project that had mysteriously run over budget by nearly $3 million, with Elena's company handling all the financial oversight. Mr. Thompson, Detective Gorman's voice seemed to come from far away. Do you recognize any of this information? I looked up at him, then at Principal Martinez, who was watching me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. The woman I'd been married to for 9 years, the mother of my child, the person I'd trusted with everything. She was planning to frame me for embezzlement and disappear with her lover. I need to make a phone call, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Thompson, I have to ask, did you know about any of this? I met Detective Gorman's eyes. No, Detective, I didn't, but I'm starting to understand why my wife has been working so many late nights lately. The room fell silent except for the ticking of Principal Martinez's wall clock. Outside, I could hear children playing at recess, their laughter a stark contrast to the nightmare unfolding in this office. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. How did the school thing go? Hope it wasn't anything serious. See you tonight. Love you. I showed the message to Detective Gorman. He raised an eyebrow. What do you want to do, Mr. Thompson? I looked at the laptop screen again, at the evidence of my wife's betrayal laid out in neat digital folders. Elena thought she was so smart, so careful. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the man she'd married. I want to go home, Detective. I need to have a conversation with my wife. Elena was already home when I pulled into our driveway, her silver BMW parked at its usual angle, slightly crooked, taking up more space than necessary, just like everything else about her lately. I sat in my truck for a moment, studying our house. The white colonial with black shutters we'd bought 5 years ago, back when I thought we were building a life together. The maple tree we'd planted in the front yard the day we brought Ollie home from the hospital. The flower beds Elena used to tend, but had abandoned once her career demands intensified. Everything looked normal from the outside, but then again, so had Elena. I found her in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, a navy blazer and matching skirt that probably cost more than I made in a week. She was opening a bottle of wine, her movements sharp and efficient. Hey babe, she said without looking up. How was your day? You never answered my text about the school thing. Just a mix-up with Ollie's backpack, I said, watching her face carefully. Nothing serious. She poured herself a generous glass of Chardonnay. Good. I was worried it might be something important. She took a sip, then finally looked at me. You look tired. Rough day at the site? I could have laughed at the irony. Here she was, expressing concern about my well-being while planning to destroy my life. The woman was either a sociopath or the world's best actress. Yeah, you could say that. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and leaned against the counter. How about you? Any exciting developments at Pinnacle? Something flickered in her eyes, so brief I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking for it. Same old stuff. You know how it is. Actually, I don't. You never really talk about your work anymore. Elena set down her wine glass and turned to face me fully. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just an observation. I shrugged, keeping my voice casual. Remember when you used to tell me about your projects? Now it's all confidential client information, and you wouldn't understand the technical stuff. Because you wouldn't, she snapped, then seemed to catch herself. Her expression softened. I'm sorry, I don't mean it like that. It's just, the financial sector is complicated. I don't want to bore you with the details. Right, because I'm just a construction foreman. Elena's face went pale. Those were Grant's exact words from the email thread. Jack, what's gotten into you today? You're being weird. Before I could answer, Ollie came thundering down the stairs, his backpack in hand. Dad, I think I grabbed your laptop thing this morning. Sorry. It's okay, buddy. These things happen. I ruffled his hair, grateful for the interruption. Did you get it back? Yeah, Mrs. Patterson gave it to me after school. She said some grown-ups needed to look at it first to make sure it wasn't broken. Elena's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. Red wine spread across the white tiles like blood. Mom, are you okay? Ollie asked. Fine, sweetie, just clumsy. Elena's voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking as she reached for paper towels. Why don't you go start your homework? Dad and I will clean this up. As soon as Ollie was out of earshot, Elena straightened up and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating. What did they see, Jack? Who? Don't play games with me. The grown-ups who looked at my laptop. What did they see? I pretended to consider the question. I don't know. Principal Martinez just said there was some kind of mix-up. Why? Is there something on there I should know about? Elena stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. Was I lying? How much did I know? What was her next move? Of course not, she said finally. Just work stuff. Client confidentiality, you know? Right, client confidentiality. We cleaned up the wine in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Elena was probably trying to figure out how much damage had been done, and whether she needed to accelerate her timeline. I was thinking about Detective Gorman's business card, now tucked safely in my wallet, and wondering how long I could keep up this charade. That night, Elena claimed she had a headache and went to bed early. I stayed downstairs, ostensibly watching TV but actually planning my next move. Around midnight, I heard her phone buzzing from the kitchen counter. I crept over and saw a text from GM, Grant Morrison. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Things might be compromised. We need to talk. Elena's message and went back to the couch. Elena thought she was so clever, but she'd made another mistake. She'd left her phone downstairs, and I'd been watching her enter her passcode for months without really thinking about it. Our anniversary, June 15th, 2015, the date we got married. Even her betrayal was sentimental. The next morning, Elena left for work earlier than usual, claiming she had a breakfast meeting with potential clients. I waited until her BMW disappeared around the corner, then called in sick to the construction site. My foreman, Ricky Castellano, wasn't happy about it. You never call in sick, Jack. What's going on? Personal stuff. I'll explain later. Can you handle the Henderson site inspection without me? Yeah, but the client's going to want answers about those budget overruns. That financial company has been asking a lot of questions. Pinnacle Financial, Elena's company. What kind of questions? Weird stuff, like they're looking for discrepancies in our billing. Almost like they're building a case for something. My blood ran cold. They weren't looking for discrepancies. They were creating them. Elena and Grant were probably doctoring records to make it look like I'd been skimming money from the project. Ricky, I need you to do me a favor. Make copies of all our billing records for Henderson. Every invoice, every receipt, every change order. Can you do that? Sure, but why? Just do it, and keep the copies somewhere safe. Not at the office. After hanging up, I drove to Elena's workplace, a gleaming glass tower in downtown Hartford. I'd only been there a handful of times, usually for company parties or the occasional lunch date back when our marriage was real. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:30 a.m., Elena emerged from the building with a tall, athletic man in an expensive suit. Even from a distance, I could see the easy familiarity between them. The way he touched her lower back, how she leaned into him as they walked. Grant Morrison. Had to be. I followed them to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, staying far enough back to avoid detection. Through the window, I watched them sit in a corner booth, their heads close together in intense conversation. Elena looked stressed, gesturing emphatically. Grant appeared calm, occasionally reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. Elena was panicking. Grant was reassuring her, probably telling her everything would be fine, that they just needed to stick to the plan. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Client meeting running long. Might be late tonight. Order pizza for you and Ollie. I looked through the coffee shop window. She was typing on her phone, lying to me in real time. I texted back. No problem. Hope the meeting goes well. She smiled when she read my response, showing the message to Grant. They both laughed. That's when I made my decision. If Elena wanted to play games, I'd show her how it was done. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I drove home and went straight to Elena's home office, a converted bedroom she'd claimed as her workspace during the pandemic and never given up. She kept it locked, claiming it was for security reasons related to her client's sensitive financial information. The lock was a joke, a basic door handle lock that I bypassed in 30 seconds with a credit card. Elena might be smart about financial fraud, but she knew nothing about physical security. Her desk was meticulously organized, everything in its place. I started with the filing cabinet, looking for anything related to the Henderson Project or Grant Morrison. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. A manila folder labeled insurance contained photos of me that I'd never seen before, pictures of me leaving bars, taken from angles that made me look drunk, photos of me arguing with subcontractors at the construction site, cropped to remove context. Even a picture of me grabbing Elena's wrist during what had been a playful moment, but photographed to look aggressive. Another folder contained bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. Accounts in my name, showing regular deposits that corresponded exactly with the missing money from the Henderson Project. The deposits were small enough to avoid triggering federal reporting requirements, but large enough to add up to a significant sum over time. But the most damaging evidence was a handwritten journal in Elena's neat script. Entries dating back 6 months, describing fictional incidents of domestic violence, emotional abuse, and financial controlling behavior. Each entry was detailed and believable, painting a picture of a woman trapped in an abusive marriage with a man who was stealing from his employer. The final entry, dated just 2 days ago, was the most chilling. Jack is becoming more suspicious and aggressive. Yesterday he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises when I came home late from work. I'm afraid he's discovered my investigation into his financial irregularities at the Henderson Project. Grant thinks we should move up the timeline. I agree. I can't live like this much longer. If something happens to me, people need to know the truth about my husband. I photographed every page with my phone, my hands shaking with rage. Elena hadn't just planned to steal money and disappear. She'd constructed an elaborate frame job that would have left me facing embezzlement charges and possibly domestic violence accusations. Even if I'd eventually proven my innocence, the damage to my reputation and relationship with Ollie would have been irreversible. I was so absorbed in documenting Elena's deception that I almost missed the sound of her car in the driveway. I quickly returned everything to its original position, locked the office door, and made it to the kitchen just as she walked through the front door. "Hey," she said, seeming genuinely surprised to see me. "I thought you'd be at work. Came home for lunch. Slow day." I gestured to the sandwich I'd hastily assembled. "How was your client meeting?" "Productive. We're making good progress on the new portfolio." She set down her purse and studied my face. "You look better today. Less stressed." "Yeah, I feel better. Sometimes a good night's sleep makes all the difference." Elena smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. Sweet, caring, genuine. It was almost enough to make me doubt what I'd seen in her office. "I'm glad," she said, kissing my cheek. "I worry about you sometimes. This job, the pressure, it's not good for anyone." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She was already practicing her concerned widow act. "You're right," I said. "Maybe it's time for a change." That evening, I called Ricky and asked him to meet me at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where construction workers went to drink cheap beer and complain about their bosses. It was the kind of place Elena would never set foot in, which made it perfect for what I had in mind. Ricky was already there when I arrived, nursing a Budweiser and flirting with the bartender. At 42, he was built like a linebacker and had the personality to match. Loud, loyal, and absolutely fearless when it came to defending his friends. "You look like hell, Jack," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. "What's eating you?" I ordered a beer and spent the next hour telling him everything. The laptop mix-up, the evidence of Elena's affair and embezzlement scheme, the fake domestic violence journal, the doctored bank accounts. Ricky listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "That manipulative bitch," he said when I finished. "I never liked her, you know that? Always thought she was too good for us regular folks. I need your help, Ricky. But what I'm asking, it's not exactly legal, neither is what she's doing to you." Ricky leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What do you need?" "Information. I need to know more about Grant Morrison, where he lives, where he works, what his routine looks like. And I need to know about those warehouses and the photos from Elena's laptop. Consider it done. I've got cousins in the private security business. They know how to find people." "There's something else. The Henderson Project billing records. Did you make those copies?" Ricky grinned and patted a manila envelope on the seat beside him. "Every single document. I also made a few calls to our suppliers. Turns out Pinnacle Financial has been asking them about irregularities in our orders. Specifically, they wanted to know if we'd ever asked them to falsify invoices or inflate prices." "What did the suppliers tell them?" "The truth, that we've always been straight shooters. But here's the interesting part. Pinnacle offered to pay them for consulting services if they'd be willing to reconsider their recollections." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Elena and Grant were getting desperate, making mistakes. Did any of the suppliers take the deal? Not yet, but they're thinking about it. Times are tough, and Pinnacle was offering good money. "Get me names and contact information for anyone Pinnacle approached. I want to talk to them personally." We spent another hour planning our next moves. Ricky would handle the surveillance and information gathering while I worked on documenting Elena's deception and building my own case. We agreed to meet again in 2 days to compare notes. As I was leaving the bar, my phone rang. "Elena." "Hey, babe, where are you?" "Ollie's asking about dinner." "Just grabbing a beer with Ricky. I'll be home in 20 minutes. "Okay. Drive safe. Love you." "Love you too," I lied. The next morning, Elena announced she had to fly to Boston for a 3-day client conference. She'd be leaving that afternoon and wouldn't be back until Friday. "It's terrible timing," she said, packing her suitcase with practiced efficiency. "But this client represents a huge opportunity for the firm. I can't miss it. Don't worry about it. Ollie and I will hold down the fort." She kissed me goodbye at the door. Her performance led her perfect. Loving wife, dedicated professional, woman with nothing to hide. Moi huh. I waited exactly 1 hour after her departure before calling Ricky. "She's gone. 3 days in Boston, supposedly." "Moi huh. Want to bet she's not going to Boston?" "No bet. Can your security contacts track her?" "Moi huh. Already on it. I'll have her location within the hour." While I waited for Ricky's call, I went back to Elena's office. This time, I wasn't just gathering intelligence. I was planting some of my own. I installed a small recording device behind her desk, positioned to capture any conversations she might have in the room. I also placed a GPS tracker in her car, hidden under the rear bumper where she'd never think to look. But my masterpiece was the keylogger I installed on her desktop computer. Every keystroke, every password, every email would now be recorded and transmitted to a secure server I'd set up using my construction company's IT resources. Moi huh. Alana thought she was the smart one in our relationship, the one with the college degree and the sophisticated job. But she'd forgotten that I'd been working with technology my entire career. Modern construction sites were full of computers, sensors, and digital systems. I might not have an MBA, but I knew my way around electronics. My phone rang just as I was finishing up in Alana's office. "She's at the Marriott in Springfield," Ricky reported. "About an hour from here. Definitely not Boston." "Is she alone?" "Negative. Tall guy, expensive suit. Looks like he spends a lot of time at the gym. Has to be your boy Grant. Perfect. Keep watching them. I want to know everywhere they go, everyone they meet with." "You got it. But Jack? Whatever you're planning, be careful. These people have already shown they're willing to destroy you. If they figure out you're onto them." "They won't," I said. "Elena thinks I'm too stupid to catch on, and Grant thinks I'm too weak to fight back. Let them keep thinking that." Midnafek, the night I tucked Ollie into bed and sat in my living room, staring at photos of my family. Wedding pictures, vacation snapshots, Images of birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments that had once seemed precious. How long had Elena been planning this? How many of our conversations had been lies? How many times had she looked me in the eye and told me she loved me while secretly plotting my destruction? My laptop chimed with an incoming email from the keylogger. Elena was online, probably using the hotel's Wi-Fi to communicate with Grant. I opened the file and read her latest messages. Jack seems calmer since yesterday. I think we're okay to proceed as planned. The Boston alibi is working perfectly. He hasn't asked any suspicious questions. 2 more weeks, and we'll have everything transferred. Then we can make the domestic violence report and disappear while he's dealing with the legal fallout. I closed the laptop and poured myself a whiskey. Elena was right about one thing. I was calmer, because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I had a plan of my own. She wanted to play games? Fine, but she was about to learn that her husband wasn't as stupid or as weak as she thought. The real game was just beginning. Elena returned from her fake Boston trip on Friday afternoon, full of stories about client meetings and networking events that had never happened. She was relaxed, confident, probably thinking she'd bought herself more time to execute her plan. She had no idea that while she was playing house with Grant in Springfield, I'd been busy destroying the foundation of everything they'd built. How was Boston? I asked over dinner, watching her face carefully. Exhausting, but productive. The client loved our presentation. I think we're going to land a major contract. That's great, honey. What kind of contract? Oh, for just a moment, Elena hesitated. She hadn't prepared for follow-up questions because she'd assumed I wouldn't ask any. Asset management. High net worth individuals looking to diversify their portfolios. Sounds complicated. It is, but that's why they need experts like us. Ollie, oblivious to the undercurrents, chattered about his week at school. Elena played the part of the attentive mother, asking about his math test and his upcoming soccer game. Watching her perform maternal affection while planning to frame his father for embezzlement was almost more than I could stomach. After Ollie went to bed, Elena poured herself a glass of wine and settled onto the couch beside me. I missed you, she said, curling up against my side. Missed you too. Jack? Her voice was soft, vulnerable. I know I've been distant lately. Work has been so stressful, and I feel like I haven't been a good wife to you. You've been fine. No, I haven't. I've been selfish, focused on my career instead of our family. I want to make it up to you. She kissed my neck, her hands sliding across my chest. 6 months ago, this would have been enough to make me forget any doubts I might have had. Now, it just felt like another manipulation. Elena, I'm tired. It's been a long week. She pulled back, studying my face. Are you sure you're okay? You've seemed different lately. Different how? I don't know. Distant. Like you're thinking about something else. Maybe I am. What kind of something else? I met her eyes, letting her see just enough suspicion to make her nervous. The Henderson project has been keeping me up at night. There are some irregularities in the billing that I can't figure out. Elena's body went rigid. What kind of irregularities? Money that doesn't add up. Invoices that don't match our records. It's probably nothing, but the client is asking questions. I'm sure it's just a bookkeeping error. These things happen in construction all the time. Yeah, probably. But if there's a problem, it's going to come back on me. I'm the site supervisor. I'm responsible for everything that happens on that project. Elena was quiet for a long moment, her mind racing. I could practically hear her calculating the risks, wondering if she needed to accelerate her timeline. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer, she said finally, just to protect yourself. You think I need protection? I think you should be careful. Construction companies get sued all the time over cost overruns. You don't want to be the scapegoat if something goes wrong. The irony was breathtaking. Elena was giving me legal advice while actively working to frame me for embezzlement. You're right, I said. I should probably get ahead of this. The next morning, I did exactly that, but not in the way Elena expected. I drove to Detective Gorman's office and laid out everything I'd discovered. The fake bank accounts, the doctored photographs, the handwritten journal documenting fictional abuse. I showed him the GPS data proving Elena had lied about her Boston trip, and I played recordings of her phone conversations with Grant that I'd captured using the listening device in her office. Detective Gorman listened to everything without interruption, occasionally taking notes or asking for clarification. This is sophisticated, he said when I finished. Your wife and her boyfriend put a lot of thought into this frame job. What happens now? Now we build a case. The evidence you've gathered is good, but we need more. We need to catch them in the act of actually transferring the money or filing false reports. How do we do that? Detective Gorman smiled grimly. We give them exactly what they want. We make them think their plan is working. Over the next week, I played the part of the increasingly paranoid husband. I asked Elena nervous questions about the Henderson project. I mentioned that investigators had been asking questions at the construction site. I even staged a fake argument with Ricky in front of other workers, making it look like the stress was getting to me. Elena ate it up. She became more attentive, more loving, constantly asking about my emotional state and offering support. She was documenting my supposed deterioration, probably adding entries to her fake abuse journal. But while Elena thought she was manipulating me, I was actually controlling her. Every move she made was being recorded, every conversation monitored, every plan documented. The breakthrough came on a Thursday evening. Elena claimed she was working late, but the GPS tracker showed she was at Grant's apartment across town. I activated the listening device I'd planted in her purse during one of our romantic moments. Their conversation was everything Detective Gorman needed. The money transfer is scheduled for Monday morning. Once it hits the Cayman account, we file the domestic violence report and disappear. What about the kid? Child Services will handle it. Jack will be in jail, so Ollie will go into foster care temporarily. By the time anyone figures out what really happened, we'll be long gone. You're sure this will work? Positive. I've been documenting Jack's abuse for months. Combined with the evidence of embezzlement, no one will question our story. He'll be lucky if he doesn't spend the next 20 years in prison. I sat in my truck outside Grant's apartment building, listening to the woman I'd once loved plan my destruction with casual indifference. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how little she seemed to care about what would happen to our son. That's when I stopped feeling guilty about what I was planning to do to her. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. Elena left for work early, claiming she had important meetings all day. She kissed me goodbye at the door, her performance as loving as ever. Have a good day, babe. I'll see you tonight. Actually, you won't. Elena froze, her hands still on the doorknob. What? I said you won't see me tonight, or any other night, for that matter. She turned around slowly, her face pale. Jack, what are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and played the recording from Grant's apartment. Elena's voice filled the hallway, discussing money transfers and domestic violence reports and foster care for Ollie. The color drained completely from Elena's face. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. 9 years, I said quietly. 9 years of marriage, and you were willing to send me to prison and put our son in foster care for money. Jack, I can explain. No need. I've heard everything I need to hear. Elena's shock was giving way to calculation. I could see her trying to figure out her next move, looking for an angle that would let her regain control. You can't use that recording in court, she said. It's illegal to record someone without their consent. You're right. Good thing I won't need it. Before Elena could ask what I meant, Detective Gorman stepped out of our kitchen, followed by Detective Pruitt and 2 federal agents. Elena Thompson, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit embezzlement. As they read Elena her rights and cuffed her hands behind her back, she stared at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. You think you're so smart, she hissed, but you have no idea what you've done. Grant will disappear, and you'll never get that money back. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Detective Gorman held up his phone, showing Elena a live video feed. Grant Morrison was being arrested in the parking lot of Pinnacle Financial, surrounded by FBI agents and local police. Your boyfriend tried to make the final transfer this morning, Detective Gorman explained. Unfortunately for him, we'd already frozen all the accounts and replaced the Cayman Bank's contact information with our own. Instead of transferring $3 million to the Caribbean, he sent it directly to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Elena's legs gave out. If the officers hadn't been holding her arms, she would have collapsed. The fake bank accounts, the doctored photographs, the phony abuse journal, we have it all, Detective Gorman continued. Your husband has been very cooperative in helping us build our case. They led Elena away in handcuffs, her expensive heels clicking against the sidewalk as she stumbled toward the police car. Neighbors had started to gather, drawn by the commotion. I could see them whispering to each other, pointing at Elena, taking pictures with their phones. By evening, everyone in town would know that the sophisticated financial executive from Pinnacle had been arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Elena's reputation, the thing she'd valued more than her family, was destroyed forever. After the police left, I sat in my empty kitchen and called my lawyer. There would be paperwork to handle, custody arrangements to make, divorce proceedings to initiate. The next few months would be complicated, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. My phone rang. It was Ricky. Holy shit, Jack. I just saw the news. They arrested Elena and that pretty boy boyfriend of hers. Yeah, it's over. How are you holding up? I looked around the kitchen where Elena had stood just hours earlier, kissing me goodbye while planning my destruction. The wine glass she'd broken a week ago had left a small stain on the grout that I'd never bothered to clean. I'd get to it eventually. I'm fine, Ricky. Better than fine, actually. And what about Ollie? He's at school. I'll pick him up in a few hours and explain what happened. He's going to need therapy, probably for a long time, but he'll be okay. We both will. And Elena. I thought about the woman who'd shared my bed for 9 years while secretly plotting my downfall. The woman who'd been willing to sacrifice her own son's well-being for money and a new life with her lover. Elena made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Through the kitchen window, I could see our maple tree swaying in the wind. The leaves were starting to turn, bright reds and golds against the gray sky. In a few weeks, they'd fall, and winter would come. But after winter, there would be spring. New growth, new possibilities. A new life built on truth instead of lies. I finished my coffee and went to pick up my son.